Welcome to A Friday Reads, where I talk about what I read, what I'm reading, what I hope to get to next, and I'm happy to say I'm feeling a little better today. Every day is still a journey. I'm still, doing too many things. I'm still overwhelmed. But I think some of my muscle memory from, my college days are kicking in, and so I'm now at a sustainable level of overwhelmed for now. And Putao is back from the vet, and he is doing well. We're 24 hours post-surgery, and he's doing pretty good. He's still a little out of it because, anesthesia, but he's doing well. Just in time for some kittens to appear. We're getting kittens next week, and it's incredibly exciting, which is also probably, do not yet be surprised if I'm not able to film in front of this place again, because this room is going to be where the kittens exist. And I don't know how that's going to go. I have, kitten proofing is not something I've had to do in a while. So we'll have to see. But I'm very excited to meet them and to have them come home. It's going to be great. So yeah, I guess we're starting with the life updates instead of the reading updates, but I'm doing a little bit better. I still don't know what my video output's going to be because a lot of the production energy that I've put into YouTube videos, I've kind of been diverting into what I do in the classroom. Because I only teach one 4-credit class, and I don't know actually how people do multiple ones and do it to a level that they find reasonable, because the amount of grading you do, and then the amount of preparing you do, and if you want to have a good feedback loop, you got to grade pretty close to the class. It's just a perpetual have a checklist of things to get done, very similar to how I do my YouTube video stuff. So we'll see how if that balance settles as I get into a groove there. It's only been a week, but that's going well. And yeah, books. The first thing I finished this month was not a winner for me, but it was a winner for book club discussion, and that is Drive Your Plow Over the Bones of the Dead, I think is the title. I'm really not good at titles that are more than 3 or 4 words, and this is, by definition, so long. And I know it's a quote by, I think, William Blake for a poem, and it's integral to the story, whatever. It's a very long title. It was very hard for me to remember, and you have to tilt your head to read it on the book. I want to say that book club, this either got high praise, favorite book, favorite character, or this is tedious, this was a lot to read, and I was more in the this was tedious camp. But just know I think this author writes in a way that, at least for this book in particular, you can't help but form an opinion. It's not going to be a reading experience where you don't have an opinion about this main character or the situation or the writing style. It's going to evoke an emotion. Just whether or not you're going to love this main character or not it's going to be up to you. It was so interesting being in a book club discussion where people just were so on her side. Someone was like, this is the heroine I didn't know I needed. And for me, I just was like, wow, I found her so annoying from chapter 2. And I really didn't care. And I didn't like her repetitive thinking thoughts. And I think that's a common thing for me in first person is do not like that much repetition. There is a line where things become too much for me, especially if I don't like the character. I might have more grace if I like a character, but I didn't like her. So if you've only just seen this book around and don't know what it's about, this is a book about an old woman who lives kind of in rural Poland near the Czech line. I think I can't remember if it's the Czech Republic or if it's a different country name, but regardless, it's on the border, and it's in Poland, and it starts off with one of her neighbors coming by to tell her, hey, our neighbor's died, we have to go deal with his body. That's where we open up, and we spend kind of a year in her head looking at what she does for a living, hearing her philosophies about animals and astrology and hunting and horoscopes, and kind of learning about her life. She's a very unreliable, snarky narrator. And in the meantime, more and more people are showing up dead. And in theory, this is a mystery book, and you are learning about who did it. I don't think it ever read as a mystery to me. I think I more wanted it to go a different genre route. That's what I was kind of hoping. It's definitely, though, literary, unreliable narrator type niche, if that's a thing you like. And I actually think the craft of this book is really good. I just did not like the main character, which just made it really hard. And it got a little navel-gazy philosophical for me at times. I'm just you've already talked about this. I know your opinions on this. I don't even disagree with some of your opinions, but come on. But it was really fun to discuss. Some book club discussions run themselves. This one completely did. At no point did someone not have something to jump in and say or continue the conversation. I didn't even need to bring my notes. So if you're ever looking for a book club read, this isn't too long, and I think it's It's got a lot of normal genre fiction things to make people comfortable if they're not used to literary, but it's definitely not like your standard mystery book. Do not give this to just like an Agatha Christie lover and just go, look at this mystery book. Like, it's not a thing that's going to happen. So I finished that. We discussed it. So yay. I would also say I liked the narrator for the audiobook. I think she really brought across this, like, sassy, angry, frustrated old lady voice. I enjoyed that. And I will say, to this book's credit, this is not, like, the same as every unreliable literary fiction book, which, although there are a lot of crossovers in that type of genre. I was reminded a lot of Eileen and things like that. But this is a very, like... we never even really learn how old this protagonist is. But I think it's a very unique look at how people view old people in their societies and how they disregard them. I think that's come across really well. And there were sentences in this book that I did enjoy reading. So that's this one. And then I finished the Protectorate series with Catalyst Gate, and we had our discussion for Patreon, which was very fun. And if you are a patron and you haven't watched it, we also went on a tangent about the Sun and the Void drama that's been happening. I'm not discussing the Sun and the Void drama here. Literary critical reading skills have been lost. That's all I know. I'm not on TikTok. I don't know how people have made the connections that they have made. Like, I don't even love The Sun and the Void that much. But anyways, we go into that more in depth in the last 15 minutes of that live show that patrons can get access to. It's like $3 a month if you want it. And we also talked about the Catalyst Gate, which I do think for me is the weakest in the series. I still liked it. It was a 3.5-star read. Now, whether that's because my headspace has been like, nah. Oh, but I also think, based on talking to other people, it was bloated. And there was times, especially in the 50 to 70% area, I was like, can we get to the climax now? I feel like we've done enough build-up. No, I don't want to go on this action side quest right now. And then characters are doing things that I found frustrating and not necessarily believable to me and how I felt characters were developed. But, like, these are kind of nitpicks. It's still, like, I think a really solid ending to a really fun, action-packed sci-fi series. I think it's a really well thought out. I think it's doing some fun things. I think it's doing some subversive things. We had a lot of fun discussing it. So, I'm excited to read more Megan O'Keefe in the future. I hear the new trilogy is going to be finished, like, next spring. So maybe I'll marathon that next year when I have all 3 books. I think the second book is coming out soon. Might be already out. Who knows? So, I finished that. And then, that was work. I finished it like 2 hours before the live show, and then I was like, what am I going to read next? And I did try to read Blood Over Brighthaven. My brain wasn't ready. My brain this weekend wasn't a good brain. Let's just put it that way. And we're going to get into that, because then I was like, well, let's try Love Theoretically, because that's been a book I've been wanting to read, and I read it. I read that in 24 hours, which is exactly how I should always read Ali Hazelwood, because... yeah, that was good. This one is probably my favorite, I think. I think it avoids a lot of the pitfalls I don't like in the first 2 books, where there's like, and it kind of flirts with it, but just doesn't do it in a way that like really stressed me out. I mean, this book still really stressed me out in terms of like the plot of it, but it avoided some of the plot pitfalls that I usually don't like in her earlier works, and I liked the romance. I liked their dynamic. I was relating a little too hard to certain situations. Like, when I knew my brain was in a bad place was when I was reading this book. Because this is a classic. Oh, you can't put it down while you're trying to go to sleep at night. So I was up to like 1:30, 2 in the morning reading this book, which is not me. Normally, even if I like a book, I can't stay up that late. It's only romance books that can make me do that, which is probably why I don't read too many, because I value my sleep. But I'm reading it, and then suddenly, 50% of the way through, there's this huge plot thing that happens. I don't know if it's a spoiler, so I won't talk about it, but suddenly I'm bawling, okay? Like, I'm crying my eyes out because of what happened to this character and how it relates to me and my job search situation and academia and how messed up it is. And per usual, I do think some things are done in hyperbole when it comes to academia, but I think actually, out of all of her academic adjacent books, this was the most to real world accurate about how abused adjunct professors are, how many hours they're expected to work for how little pay, how hard it is to get positions because there are just no positions opened ever. But then there are these expectations that people think, well, you have done XYZ, you have this PhD, you're going to be fine, but you're not fine. And then, there are predatory relationships between advisor and advisee. I think this is the closest to actually, like, not being overly hyperbolic. Like, Love Hypothesis, I've discussed how I don't that she could afford a banana. And then I don't really, Love on the Brain, I don't know what's happening in that book in terms of like it being accurate or not. But this one, it hit close to home to me. And also I could tell that like I was extra living in this fantasy of this character who finally meets someone and like is able to like be themselves and be taken care of. And like, I don't know, I was vibing too much. I think it was pretty good. I think it's my favorite. It's the one I am most likely to read again, I think. Although I say that about Love on the Brain too. I think Love Hypothesis, I don't think I'm ever going to read that one again because I liked it, but I don't think I liked it as much as the other ones in terms of pacing and like characters. Like, I don't think Olive was like a real person to me, and she was definitely not a real person when she made a cameo in this book, because apparently this is a universe that has crossovers. Who knew? So those are the 3 I've read so far, and now I was maybe going to read Blood Over Brighthaven, but then I decided to pick up, oh boy, Our Share of Night. Now this is actually the bookmark for where Ryan is. I am further in. I'm like 50% of the way through. I have the ebook and the audio as well that I'm listening to. I'm going to put up a picture because this is heavy. But I started reading it physically at night to try to see, you know, is it a book I only want to physically read? Do I want to do the audio? And I actually like both relatively equally, and I'm really liking it. So it's just kind of been like, this is a week where I'm only reading one book, and this is the book. And it's really long, so that kind of works. So I'm about 50-ish% of the way through. There are really long chapters. Like, I'm 200 some pages in, and I'm in chapter 3, or part 3, or whatever it's called. And I really get why some reviews were comparing it to things like Stephen King, but it's like, I don't know, it's a really interesting horror, and I think it's really good for this time of year, and it's always what I want contemporary Latinx horror to be like. Like, this takes place around the 80s in Argentina, and ooh, I am loving the setting, the context we're given around the previous dictatorship and the current times, the class divides between people, what it's like growing up on these streets for these kids. So like the first part is with this father and son going to this place, and we don't know why, and it's through the father's perspective and this one other character, and you're trying to figure out what's going on, and it's so mysterious, and the cult is so culty and dark, and the cover, this is one of the best covers for a book I have ever seen. Like, I love this hand so much, especially when you've read the book. Oh, it's so good. Also, very, very unlikable, likable, sympathetic main character in this father figure. Like, wow, I don't even know how to parse it. So that's like the first part, and then the second part I got like a flashback, and then the third part we're with his kid, and he's a little bit older, and he's with his friends, and he's trying to figure out what's going on around him. And I think the mystery intrigue is really good. I think the atmosphere is amazing. The occult energy, like the alchemy and the darkness, and it's perfect for this time of year. It's very like if Buffy was serious, I guess. So I'm having a really good time with it. Sometimes I think I've done myself a disservice of only listening to the audiobook on my commute, because sometimes I might like miss some descriptive factors versus when I'm like immersion reading it or only using my eyeballs. But this is a book I could easily see myself rereading one day. It's really good. I'm like really enjoying it. It's like really hitting the spot right now. How many times can she say really? So it's my current read, and I'll probably be reading that for the next couple days. I don't know what I'll get to next. Maybe Blood Over Brighthaven if my brain's finally in the mood. But I also have some other books around me. So I have a little book haul, and, you know, I want to read Blood Over Brighthaven, but look what just came in, guys. It's my Sword of Kaigen. Oh, it's so pretty. Guys, this book is actually stunning. I love the dust jacket, and then under the dust jacket, let me get it out. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. This is so pretty. Inside flap, and, you know, it's got, oh, look at that map. It's got good binding, so it actually, like, flops open. It's not one of those special editions where it's like, oh, no, you can never open this book. And it's got, like, tinted back pages, and there's art in it. It's so pretty. I love this. So, like, part of me is like, well, you could just read The Sword of Kaigen. Because I could. Like, I could physically read from this. Like, I don't feel like it's so precious that I couldn't, like, you know, open it up and read it. Oh, it's so pretty. Anyways, but I also have Blood Over Brighthaven by this author that I would love to read. If you wanted to see the dust jacket, though. It is so pretty. I also have the new T. Kingfisher, Thornhenge. I got this at the bookstore because it matches my other T. Kingfisher. And this without the dust jacket is very cute. And it has the same, like, inside pages as What Moves the Dead and, Nettle and Bones. So I was like, it has to go with the collection, as if I'm not going to love this story. I might read this soon. I almost read this instead of Love Theoretically, but I just erred on the side of my brain needed happily ever after romance. And I'm sure this would be relatively happy, but I just didn't think I was in the mood for fantasy. And then Evie was very sweet, and she sent me this, I think it's a short story collection by Marie Brennan, and that's an author I really like, both for M.A. Carrick, there, I think the M in M.A. Carrick, but also I've read Driftwood and the Lady Trent series, so I've never read their short stories. So we'll see how this goes, or if it's a collection that's like interconnected, kind of like Driftwood was kind of like short stories all connected with like a framing device. But yay, I have this too. So I could see myself reading some of those. I'm almost done with my obligations for the month because I was kind to myself. Yay me. And thank goodness, because reading is not like, I mean, it's a thing I want to do because I like doing it, but it is not a priority like it sometimes can be for me. Like sometimes when I am more reasonably not overwhelmed person, I'll be like, okay, make sure you set aside X amount of time to do this today for reading. Nope. Now I just read when I want to read, when I have time to read. Luckily, my commute is long. So most of my reading time is happening commute-wise, and I have a lot more commuting that I'm doing right now with the teaching. So that's probably the only reason I've read as much as I have, is because of that. So yeah, that's this video. Let me know what you're reading, doing, watching this weekend. And if you just want to leave an emoji to let me know you're here, you gotta leave that hand with the nail thing. Oh gosh, like Our Share of Night, man. Oh, it's pretty great. It's pretty great. I recommend. The audio narrator is also really good, especially if you want to get the pronunciations and things like that. And I think it's been a pretty great translation so far. At least it doesn't feel like a translation is what I would say. Obviously, I can't compare it to the original. I'm not reading it in Spanish. But yeah, so otherwise, like if you liked it, subscribe if you want to, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.